Welcome, 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 everyone. I am Dr. Ware. I'm one of the co-presidents along with Lynn Stevens, and we want to welcome you to our monthly meeting with the Ohio Grandparent Kinship Coalition. And Barb has sent out an announcement to ask all the caregivers to put your name and email in the chat so you'll be eligible for a $50 gift card. And so we know how that can be really a blessing and helpful. So we love to do that every month. We want to first announce before we get started with today's meeting that our next meeting is Monday, May the 13th. And our topic will be legal status of caregivers. So please put that on your calendar. Please show up. I know that is a topic that I myself need information on, and I'm sure it can benefit others as well. We also want to remind you that if you would like or need a certificate of attendance, we will be happy to provide you with one. You need to please submit your name to Barb Turbin in the chat, and she will make sure that you get a certificate. All right, so we're going to just roll on into today's speaker. So we're so happy to have this speaker. Our topic today is Recovery Ohio, and it's Ohio's initiative to combat substance abuse and mental health disorders. And we know how that is important, how it is really needed in Ohio. So I'm going to read a little bio for our presenter today. So we have Jennifer Lloyd, currently serves as the Strategic Initiative Director for Recovery Ohio. Before her time as the Strategic Initiative Director, Lloyd spent over 4 years as the Central Ohio Territory Business Manager for Alchemines. I just asked her how to pronounce that, Inc. During this time, Jennifer spent her days with treatment providers, gaining clinical knowledge and insight into the day-to-day operations of behavioral health care treatment providers. Prior to her work at Alchemines, Inc., Jennifer served from 2011 to 2018 as the director of the statewide Substance Abuse and Outreach Initiative for the Ohio Attorney General's Office. In this role, Jennifer was responsible for a broad range of responsibilities, including raising awareness, the expansion of the use of Nacalon, community engagement, and law enforcement strategic initiatives. Jennifer has a Bachelor's of Art degree in psychology from Stockton University and a Master's in Science and Psychology degree from Phoenix University. Jennifer currently lives in Buckeye Lake with her partner, Tony White, her son, Colin, his wife, Maggie, and her son, Caleb, and they are her greatest joys. So please welcome Jennifer Lloyd as she presents this presentation for us today. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you for having me. I can't see all of you, just, I'm echoing, so that's a little weird. But thank you all for joining, and I'm going to go over a little bit about my background, kind of a little bit more on a personal aspect, and what the role of Recovery Ohio is. And I'm going to end with the stuff that I think is actually the most important to you, which is kinship care. I joined the Office of the Attorney General after I had really been a very strong community advocate in Union County. I don't know if any of you from there. When a local business guy, Bruce Daniels, said, we really need to fix communities. We started work there. It got noticed by the Attorney General, which was Mike DeWine, and he hired me, and I basically ran the heroin unit for him until I left and spent some time kind of in the field doing clinical work, and then joined Recovery Ohio about a year ago. I've had quite an interesting experience with all people affected. I would imagine, and if you don't, maybe you should know Brenda Stewart, who runs the Addicts Parent. Her and I go back a long ways. It's a very active Facebook group for people to go and get help from others who have experienced the same kind of things. And very recently, I had interest in speaking directly with grandparents because I know that sometimes the stuff on websites looks good, but when you actually go to use it, it's a little bit more challenging. So I wanted to talk to grandparents to find out from them their experiences in trying to access programming. Um, I'd say some good, some not so good, but it was interesting to learn from them. And recently, and I'll talk about it more at the end, the kinship programs have moved over to the new division that was created by the governor, the Department of uh, Youth and Children, and they have revamped that site. So it is a lot more user friendly, and they actually have navigators now to help guide you through how to learn about the different programs that are available for kinship providers and those who've elected to adopt it, those children. And I make sure to give you that phone number before I end the call today so that you have that. So Recovery Ohio was the governor's very first executive order when he took office. I think he signed it about 1201 after he took office. And the purpose of Recovery Ohio, we do sit in the governor's office. We kind of oversee all of the work across the state. We are, I'd say, a convener of agencies. So, for example, when we began the site, which is the website naloxone.ohio.gov, where anybody can go and get free naloxone. And again, that's naloxone.ohio.gov. We worked with a variety of state departments to um, create that site. Very often, state departments work by themselves to accomplish things, but often we need them to work together. So we really kind of create that and join those offices together. Um, I hope you all appreciate that the governor has had a very strong interest, particularly in children, which he just did a state of the state, was very focused on children, and addiction services and mental health issues. I think last budget he put $6 billion into it. That's quite a bit. So we're really trying to do the best that we can over the rest of his term to make sure that we create programming that stays in place after he leaves. We have a Recovery Ohio Advisory Council. They are members of the community and other agencies, and included in that, and I'll mention it again, is Brenda Stewart, who runs the Addicts Parent. So she gives a very strong voice to folks like yourself because she is also raising her grandchildren. Let's skip through that. The most recent project that I was really responsible for were the creation of what we call our strategic initiatives. And these initiatives are initiatives that we felt were the most important things to make sure we accomplished for the time the governor left office so that they would be in place and stay permanent when somebody else takes office and would make the biggest, greatest difference um, while we are in office. The first one is to really change how the council works. It's not that interesting for you guys, but certainly is for them. They really felt they were being talked at and not being included enough in conversations. So we're fixing all that for them. I think this one, continuum of care, is probably would be likely the greatest interest to you when it's developed. For as long as I can remember, we have really tried to develop some sort of portal where if you need help, you can go there and get help, whether it's for substance abuse issues, it could be for mental health issues, it might be you need food, like they needed, for example, recently after tornadoes came through, right? That in Indian Lake, folks, the biggest call to the 211 system was for food. Um, it's a challenge, but we are looking at that just as it says, as a continuum of care portal, so that we're going to follow what people need through their continuum into recovery. So it would include not just getting into treatment, but the follow up care that's needed afterwards, including things like connection to housing and peer support. Um, So we're working on that pretty aggressively. It's very interesting to work on. And certainly, if there's a way to get feedback from you guys and there's things that you feel should be included in something like this, we're very happy to hear that feedback from you. The third is something called predictive analytics. And forever, we have been very reactive, right? We've talked a lot about overdose deaths, right? We take that data, we come up with strategies. Be a whole lot better if we could do a better job determining how things are looking before that happens. We have lots and lots of data from law enforcement that, say, for example, could tell us that some deadly strains of higher dosing than fentanyl are coming up certain highways, and we can do alerts and do harm reduction measures before it hits areas and save lives, so that we're not reacting. We are protecting folks. The next one is really about looking at indicators that we can do measurement. We heard a lot when we were going through this process that we need to make decisions based on data. While that sounds obvious, it's not always true. So we need to be very clear that we're doing the right things based on what the data tells us. That's true for the other one. We also did a lot of work on prevention. We've been lacking in some areas. So there'll be a big effort again to do a lot of focus through this process, not just from most of the people who gave input, but from Brenda, the addict's parent person, over and over again stated to us that we've done a decent job with individuals, but we've done a bad job with families. We know that the best way to get to families is often through the children. And so we'll have much more of a focus on the prevention within families. So, for example, if a child goes to school and learns about risks associated with suicide, we need to make sure that when that kid goes home, that they can share with their family what they learned in school and they know how to respond to that appropriately. When I worked at the Attorney General's office, I did a lot of work in Scioto County, and I'll never forget this little boy who said, I appreciate the backpacks you guys send home, but my parents take that when I get in the car because they have to try to sell everything for their drug habit. So can I please have some underwear? I haven't had any in 2 years. So when we hear stuff like that from kids, there is definitely trauma going on, and maybe we need to decide what we do to help that child and his family when we hear things like that. So those really will be our focus for the next 3 years. And I'm going to just kind of give you a feel for some of the work that we have done. I'm going to skip through that, but it's really about the need for data, again, which I've touched on. There are dashboards, and I'm going to follow up with some links after I finish this with you guys, so that if you have interest in looking at this information, you can. Just a few of the things that we've worked on as Recovery Ohio. I mentioned naloxone.ohio.gov. We did a campaign on counterfeit pills. This is probably not news to any of you, but certainly this is a scary thing that we're seeing where fentanyl is being disguised as other things, and people are unknowingly taking it and overdosing. Our biggest deaths are currently from fentanyl. We're seeing increase of deaths from cocaine. Generally, it's because it's mixed with fentanyl, and people unknowingly are using cocaine and dying from the exposure to fentanyl. Recovery Within Reach is a good example of very specific programming. This was for financial planners. We're trying to reach out to people who touch people. So in this instance, it's financial planners who may notice things when their clients come to see them, like a sudden drop in money, a change in behaviors. So they're being trained to know how to respond to that. There's a good friend of mine who's in recovery, both her and her husband. So they had actually gone to their financial planner and said, if you learn that one of us is addicted, We have signed documentation that says that we're going to be locked out from all funds of the family. Um, it's up to the person to do that, but there's really good tools, and we're going to try to reach other folks so that we can get to folks earlier instead of later. We do a lot of work in stigma reduction. As much as we want to think it's changed, and it has changed, not as much as, but not as much as we need it to. You've probably seen these campaigns or heard them on the radio or television. These campaigns were seen by 96% of Ohioans. So hopefully it's made a difference. We think that stigma is reducing, but we still know we still have a long way to go. We created a media resource guide to help with that, to use the right language. We do what are called Encompass trainings. We've got a couple coming up. We've got about 1,000 people that attend some of these to teach them about addiction and mental health issues, and how to spot signs, how to talk to people, all sorts of different things. If those are things that might be helpful to you, I'm happy to share the links to those trainings with you folks so you can join when they're available. 988 done extensive work with 988, and that continues. Interestingly enough, I think only it's 35% of Ohioans know anything about 988. They receive about 14,000 calls a month. I'll share my little story about 988. My son, he's 24, called 988 back in the summer for suicide ideation. They recognized very quickly he was in trouble and said, either you get yourself to the hospital or we're going to come get you. He ended up at Harding for several days. He's doing pretty good now, but it's been a struggle. And I think any of you who deal with this know that every day, I'm not sure if this is going to be a good day or a really bad one. So, but we keep trying. But 988 has been there for him, so that you all know about it. It's important. So many mental health challenges, particularly for young kids. There's so much isolation that causes all kinds of problems. And they receive text calls, from kids who just say, I just need someone to talk to. I'm lonely. My son calls them about every week, just to have somebody to talk to. That's a very important resource. Operation Bridge is a program where law enforcement works with local agencies to get out into the community and try to get people into treatment. Project Dawn are the great distributors of naloxone and now fentanyl test strips. So if you need those two things, the easy place to go get them. In the emergency departments, we've done a lot of work. They now are much better equipped to provide services to people when they come in having overdosed, in terms of their immediate care, getting them onto appropriate medication-assisted treatment, and setting up follow-up plans and sending them home with naloxone. We've done a lot with medication disposal. Interesting enough, that started actually in Clark County with a friend of mine whose son took a pill and it killed him when he was 16 years old. She's the one who started this program because she traced how he died and had the medication that was left over after his grandmother passed been disposed of. Maybe he'd be with us today. So now we have a lot of those boxes throughout the state, and we promote them pretty heavily. Take Charge Ohio is really just another program that combines sort of some law enforcement aspects and other things. Ohio Against Overdose is a program that really kind of focuses on more diverse populations. We're going to do more of that in the coming 3 years. We haven't done a very good job. And that's, again, follow the data. The data does tell us that there is a sharp increase in the Black community, particularly of Black men. And we know that, so we need to respond to that. Ohio Stepping Up Initiative is really a mental health effort that focuses on getting treatment to people who are either about to enter into jail or prison, or as they come out. It's really trying to keep them out of those facilities. Um, Opioid treatment programs. We've expanded our treatment in the state pretty exponentially. So it's grown a lot. We know we need more people to get into treatment, and we need to keep them healthy. These are always sad, but we still continue to see a great number of overdose deaths in Ohio, and fentanyl has not been our friend. And it's why we need to keep working on this to try to save people. We don't need to really see all of that. Naloxone, I've mentioned. We have gotten out so much naloxone. People often notice Narcan. There's now two different types of it. So we try to use naloxone instead of the more the patented name. We would try to use the generic name for it. We've also installed what we call nalox boxes. We have installed them in 65 rest areas. I think we were about 2 months in when a gentleman who was driving a truck forgot he'd already taken his opioid pain medication, took it again, went into overdose, and was saved by his brother when he went to the rest stop, got the naloxone in one of the boxes, and gave it to him. We also have installing these in colleges and universities, and that's where we see a lot of the counterfeit pill stuff. It's very important. I think the governor probably this week or next will send another letter out to the universities. He heard a story from somebody at a university about the guy who ran the program saved somebody's life because of the Knox box. So we need to keep getting those out.
Jennifer, this
Yeah.
is Barb.
Yeah.
Are there other locations where people can have access to those other than the ones you just said? Are they available at drugstores or any place within the communities?
It's really dependent on the county, right? So um, I know that for example, Fairfield County, they have a very, very kind of aggressive approach to this, and they've been putting them in many different places, right? Churches, all kinds of places. The initiatives from the state have really been what I described to you. But on a local basis, I would suggest reaching out to like your local Adams board, if you're familiar with those, your mental health boards, to see if they can provide for you kind of a list of where they are. They are in lots of places, but it really depends. You know about advocacy, right? Like it depends on local advocacy. They're not super expensive. I personally, I think they should be everywhere. There's, a fire extinguisher, right? These need to be in lots of places. So we're moving toward that, but a lot of it is done by locals. I just happen to know Fairfield County real well because they have a really fabulous quick response team there who's very engaged, as is their Adams board in getting these out. So I would suggest, you could talk to a Project Dawn. They're all over the place. Department of Health, your Adams board, and say, where are they? Where else can they be? Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. That's good to know.
Yeah. So fentanyl test strips, we've now just in the last about 3 weeks ago, we have now distributed over 1 million fentanyl test strips. There's been a lot of debate about these, so we're going to try to deal with that fairly soon, but there's still stigma, right? It reminds me of when we were first trying to get naloxone out there. Same kind of things that they're saying. It's going to encourage use. It's going to do all these things. It's like, no, this is harm reduction. This is harm reduction. So the concept is for people, if you're not sure, if you want to test your drug to see if it's got fentanyl, do it. Now, there's a lot of debate about that because they're like, well, they're still going to use it. Nobody cares. They want the fentanyl. Not true for everybody. So, where we can save lives, what we have seen with fentanyl test strips from other states in particular, where there's been research, is that if they use them, what they tend to do, if they see that there's fentanyl, doesn't always stop them from using it, but they may use around somebody else. It's helpful. they may not use as much. They might do a test dose. So we try to do everything we can to get people saved from this. So hopefully this is just kind of one more tool in the toolbox. We've talked about that briefly. The counterfeit pill I spoke about. I mean, you can see some of the stuff on here. 7 out of every 10 pills seized by the DEA contain a lethal dose of fentanyl. That's pretty scary. Spoke about recovery and reach. And like I mentioned, we're going to try to get more folks who touch people. I mean, I suggested, for example, beauticians, right? I know I talk to mine when not the one I go to anymore, but when I used to get all the fancy stuff done, I'd spend a lot of time with mine, shared a lot of things. I shared with mine once that about 9 and 8 and what had happened to my son. And while I was sitting and letting all the chemicals sit on my hair, she told someone in the break room whose boyfriend was having an episode who didn't know about it. And then I'm going to have him call. So it's important that we get to people who touch people. We're working real hard on getting places more recovery friendly. I think that we're going to release kind of a toolkit fairly soon. I was on a meeting about that last week. People still are afraid to talk to their employer if they have issues. So lots of stigma still to work on there. Spoke about beat the stigma. I think that this is probably the last year of it, but sorry about that. I didn't turn it off. But we're pleased with what the campaign has done so far. Resource guide and compass I mentioned. I'll be sure to get information out about that to your folks so that if this is something you want to join, please do. Emergency departments. I want to say that when I add to this, that when I worked at the Attorney General's office, I worked with Ohio Health on a pilot to get emergency departments to provide naloxone to folks after an overdose. And they were really, really resistant. In fact, one of them groups asked us to leave. So we've come a long way. And this is being worked on very, very much with the Ohio Department of Health is very engaged in this, and it's going to continue to expand. We do a lot with prevention. We're going to need to do more. I would imagine some of you are familiar with Ohio Rise. One of the grandparents I talked to, actually her granddaughter did participate in Ohio Rise. If it's not something you're familiar with, I'm happy to get information out to you about that. This is a program through Medicaid that's really specifically for children with very complex needs. It is very, very hard to navigate a system when you're dealing with a child who has multiple things in them. Often you've had to go to this agency and that agency and that agency and that agency to get help. Ohio Rise kind of is a central point of contact for you to reach out to for children with complex needs.
Jennifer, we did have a presentation from Ohio Rise several months ago,
Yeah.
and that presentation is on our OGCK website under resources. So anybody that wasn't able to attend that, if they are interested in getting more information, we do have the PowerPoint that was provided to us by the presenter about information for Ohio Rise. And you're right, it's a very welcome program to navigate that mental health system. And I've spoken with a caregiver just recently who was caring for a child that is going through Ohio Rise, and she's it's very comforting to know there's something out there.
Yeah, one of the grandparents that I reached out to several months ago, her granddaughter is in Ohio Rise. I mean, it might be the same person. I don't want to say her name. And it was interesting because she was really struggling to find placement for her granddaughter, who really needed, a lot of specialized care. The big challenge, one of the bigger challenges, that she's transitioning, and so very difficult to get placement when you're still, biologically a boy, but are a girl otherwise. And to keep being placed in maybe a boys unit is really tough. So we eventually did work out placement that would work for her. So that's complex stuff, right? So that's the kind of thing that Ohio Rise and her granddaughter does have Medicaid. It's a Medicaid program. We do a really heck of a job with drug take back to get these drugs, in the disposed of instead of in someone. Spoke about Operation Bridge. We do get lots of people into treatment in this way. We also, one of the things that the governor put some money into were these Ohio ONICs, Ohio Narcotics Intelligence Centers. They do a lot of work with the other side of it, which is disrupting the traffickers. There's, I think, 3 of these centers currently. Wouldn't be surprised if we get another one fairly soon. So that's Recovery Ohio, and then I'm going to share with you some more specifics if I can get rid of this thing. Here we go. Okay. I'm going to give you and I got 12 chat messages, so I'm going to get those as soon as I get through a little bit of this, because now I can see all those chat messages. So the Ohio Kinship Care and is called Ohio Can. I have some notes, so if I'm looking at them, I'm sorry about that, but this is under the Department of Children and Youth, as I mentioned, is a new department established by the governor fairly recently. They have part of Ohio Can, the Kinship and Adoption Navigator. I'm going to list some of these programs for you, but the best way to do is, if you have interest, is to either go to the site and I'll send that link, or give them a call. So they have the Kinship Permanency Incentive Program that provides up to 8 payments. And I know for you guys that might seem like a lot. It's a new program. It's, I think, more challenging than people understand. I mean, sitting in the governor's office, I get to see how challenging it can be. But I know I can tell you that Governor DeWine, when he was Attorney General, wanted to do something more for grandparents raising grandchildren. He saw the devastation, how difficult it was for so many families who were, saying, well, if I took in foster care, I get all this money, but I take in my own kid, I don't. So set up these programs to try to help with that. We don't have as a state, billions of dollars, but we try to do something. I hope it expands. It's always good to be advocates about this, which is, a great thing about your organization. But for that program and for the others I'm going to describe, you can get a navigator to help you. One of the challenges with some of these programs, having talked to some of these parents, grandparents, is that sometimes if you take one of them, it eliminates you from being able to take advantage of another one. So you need to make sure that you get the right program for you that gives you the best resources for you. And that number, and I'll send it out as a follow-up again, is a pretty easy one. It's 1-844 Ohio Can with a K. So it's 1-844 Ohio Can to get a navigator to help you through and understand some of these programs. There's also something called post-adoption social services. So after children are adopted, to get some additional funding, particularly to help with disabilities and mental health conditions. So that's another one. There's something called SAMS, which is the State Adoption Maintenance Subsidy. Again, some additional assistance. And while I'm speaking of adoption, this is something I learned after I called grandparents, and then I called JFS to say, am I right? So here's a little tricky thing, but I'm going to share it with you, and it might be something to think about advocating for. There is funding for adoption currently if you adopt a child. Generally, what this was made to do was to encourage people to adopt children out of the foster care system. Um, you can also get some adoption dollars if you adopt a child that is currently in the child protective services. What a lot of the grandparents will do, I'm sure what a lot of you have done, is to take custody. You take custody of your grandchildren, and then you decide you're going to adopt them. And you do that and you pay for the adoption. And you can't get the adoption funding because unless you've taken them directly from foster care or child protective services, you can't get the funding. I just want to give you a heads up on that. There was a woman I spoke to who her daughter had substance use disorder. She had a baby. She had been trafficked. That's why she got pregnant. She was dependent when she had the child. Child was born dependent, was given to the custody of the mom. So, as many of you understand this, she all of a sudden has a baby in her house. Um, she was being encouraged and wanted to adopt the child. I suggested that she hold off until, so that she hold off on getting legal custody, go straight to adoption, so she could try applying for the funds. This is why it's so important for you to talk to folks so that you can really understand what is the best thing for you and your circumstances. Everyone's different. I think it's tremendous to have navigators. I think they understand how complex this is. So I saw Veronica on, it just popped up. So you could add to that. But when I met with this group who does this work, they were fabulous, compassionate people. They really want to help. They know it's not perfect. We keep trying to make it better, but they want to help you.
Just just
Yeah,
to interject, Jennifer, that's when we initially announced the agenda for the next upcoming meeting in May. We are going to start addressing the legal relationships of caregivers with
good.
with the children. So May and June both will be looking into legal aspects of the relationships of caregivers with the children in their care.
That's really great. Yeah, great. It's so important. If there's people that you think I can help find for you, if you need people, let me know. It's a big area for the governor. There's adoption assistance, there's WIC. So that's to name a few of them. But there's, childcare. That was just in the governor's state of the state, additional money for childcare. So, he keeps doing what he can to help you. He gets it. He's met with a lot of grandparents. He's a great grandfather himself. So I think I'm going to look at these chats. There's 14. Let's see. Ohio Rise. Yep. I'm sorry for all that. Bill. Yeah, so like they said, there's information on Ohio Rise. If let's see. Yeah, we need to get information on Ohio Rise out to you. You have a kinship navigator program in Lucas County. Yep, that's really great. See, that's nice. Thank you, Lucas County, that you have that. I know if y'all record all these notes, it's hard for me to read everything, but I'm going to go to the top one. Oh, they're doing the gift cards. So it's not all things I have to answer. There's Brenda. She's on. Brenda, who I mentioned. Okay. There's Veronica. Veronica's been helping me. Happy to help you. And Bill. Anybody have any questions for me? I have another commitment very soon, but I think I talked too long, but I'm happy to do follow-up questions as well.
Hi, what was that phone number again for Ohio Rise?
I didn't give the Ohio Rise one, William, but I can we can be sure to get it out to you. I
Mr.
think.
Dimitrakis, if you send me put your email in the chat, I will send you some additional information about Ohio Rise. This is Barb Turpin. So if you can just stick your email in the chat, I'll get the information to you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And we're starting to go to these other meetings. I have a in-person meeting, I think, I don't know, tomorrow with this Lifeline Lake County. This is the second one, and there's something called LAMI
Not
that I've
familiar with
reached
that.
out to in Paynesville. Um, so we're looking for a game plan. I mean, we don't have anybody that's actively using anything right now, and that's what I'm searching for is. So I have two issues as I wrote there,
Hmm.
and how do I help my grandson now that it seems like a switch has flipped with him since his parents came back to live with us. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then and you've heard what ODD is. I'd never heard of that before. Um,
Yes.
Yep.
Oppositional defiant disorder, and every single line item that they list, he has started to exhibit that, and just in a matter of a month. And then how do I help my 32-year-old daughter um, start to move forward in life after having battled addiction for that period of time.
Yeah. I mean, I think my suggestion to you is the first call. Just call your Adams board, see what help. What county are you in?
Lake.
In Lake County. So I think that's I don't know if it's a Cuyahoga County one or Medina, but there's got to be a mental health board up there that covers you. I think that's a good start.
Yeah.
I also think, as I mentioned, Brendan, she's on the call, her site. Folks on there really know how to navigate this stuff. You're talking to other parents who've been through it. And I don't know anybody who can probably give better advice to you than parents who've been through it.
Yeah. Well, I have a call tomorrow morning with Kinship Caregivers Connect, which
Mm,
I've just started doing this stuff, and I have
yeah,
a meeting, I think, or an in-person meeting in Paynesville with this NAMI, this family support group in person,
yeah.
which I was
NAMI's,
advised.
NAMI's a fabulous organization. I mean, that's a good group to reach out to. They do really, really good work. I'm impressed by them. Good. That's a very good. You're on the right track.
Yeah, and another meeting, Lifeline Kinship meeting at Morley Library in Paynesville on Wednesday. So it's like I'm
Yeah.
retired, but now I have meetings again. So
Well,
which I
yes.
need. I need.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry for what you're going through, but I'm, proud of you for what you're trying to do.
Well, a lot of people have it a lot worse than we do.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else? Oh, I have something else. Wait, I almost forgot. I'll also get it out to your guys. I mean, it's not that big of a deal, but I like it. So we have a relationship with the Cincinnati Reds. Um, we do 2 mental health days a year with them. One's coming up on May 7th, and we're trying to honor grandparents raising their grandchildren. I'm not sure what that's all going to involve, but that's our attempt. And I will also get out the link. It's a link, just it's not free tickets, but discounted tickets. So if any of you have interest and you love the Cincinnati Reds, but we can come out for Mental Health Day, and I'll get the link out to you guys.
Does anybody else have any questions? Comments? All right.
Thank you for your help.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you guys for what you're doing.
All right. Someone said no questions, but great presentation.
Thank you.
All right.
I'll jump off. Oh, there's 6 new messages, 7 new messages.
I did want to thank you, Jennifer, for not just you, but your team for including families. I'm the maternal wellness project lead at the Ohio Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
and a lot of times families are, I've worked for DYS and you want to help the kid, but you don't provide no services for the family. And it's difficult for the kid to be successful if you don't help the family also. So I appreciate that
Right.
that's included in that.
Well, there are teams, the prevention for those two prevention initiatives.
Mhm.
Um, the team leads are Tia Moretti and Sarah Moore. So if this is something you have a lot of passion for, I'm sure they would love for you to join the team.
Yeah, I would.
So
I
you could,
would.
yeah, you can reach out to me. I could pass your information along to them.
Okay.
We can't, we don't. There's some smart people, right? But you need voices on the teams, right? So if that's something you want to do, just send me an email. I'll pass your information along.
Okay. I
Their
sure will.
first meeting is just starting at 11:15, so you're,
Okay.
you're not
So I
well
won't
to
be
join it.
behind.
You won't be too behind. No,
Jennifer, will you be willing to send us the PowerPoint that we can then
sure.
post it on our website?
Yeah, I'll do a
Okay.
follow up. Probably not today, but I will this week.
No, that's fine. And everybody on our website, if you haven't had the opportunity or if it's been a while, to go to the OGKC website. And if you Google OGKC, that's probably the fastest way to get to us. It's generally the second piece of information that comes up in order to go to the website. But under resources, we have support groups that are in various counties that have contacted us and told us about support groups that are available in the county. There are other resources, all the other PowerPoints that we've done on specific issues like Ohio Rise, that information's on there. So I'd encourage you to go to our website and just sort of navigate through and see what's out there, because we do try to give updated information and connections. And again, and if anything else fails, you can always contact me and I try to link you. And as Jennifer said, the Ohio Kinship Adoption Navigator is out there to also provide that support. So there's a lot of resources out there, but sometimes it just takes a little bit of looking and navigating and asking questions.
Yes. Okay, some people giving some comments that they to participate in Ohio Rise, and it's been a great experience. So, one last final questions, comments, concerns, anything that people have before Ms. Lloyd leaves? All right. I want to thank everyone. Barb, I think it's time for us to announce our gift card recipient winner.
All right. We have a long time person, a long time caregiver who's been with us for years, and Rosalind Huggins will receive our $50 gift card. And thanks for being on the meeting, Rosalind, and being involved for a number of years. So we appreciate you and what you're doing for the children in your care. And so we will get the gift card out to you as soon as possible. And thanks for everybody else for attending. And please come back next month.
Yes. Remember,
Thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you so much. Just want to remind everybody, May 13th, legal status of caregivers. And that's my final words. Well, thanks for this presentation, and I hope everybody enjoys some of this sun before the rain comes back. But thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.